Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back for another episode, and I'm thrilled today to have with me Kristy Vandenberg. Kristy, first of all, welcome, and thank you so much for taking the time to visit with us today.
Thanks so much for inviting me.
Kristy, let's start off with the event you're chairing that's coming up later in October, Pints, Pumpkins, and Pies.
Oh, my.
Oh, my. Tell us about Pints, Pumpkins, and Pies.
A lot of people in the United States don't even think about polio being an issue. This has been one of the Rotary's major objectives since 1985. We've been raising money to provide vaccinations, which really look like 2 drops in most countries because they're giving it orally. And we're just trying to eradicate this disease for our lifetime. And we took it on in 85, we're still doing it. What that means is we still need to immunize all these kids that are below the age of 6, because most of the time, if this happens, it's a children's disease. It's kids under the age of 6 that need to be vaccinated. Our club here in Kerrville is hosting an event on October 26th, which is a Thursday night. It's going to be like a happy hour because we're always happy, 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. And we're inviting everybody to come out, get a ticket for it. Tickets are $25 each, but we're trying to also find sponsors who will help sponsor at different levels to try and raise it. Our goal is a net of $10,000. So good.
Where's it going to be held?
It's going to be held at River Arts Pavilion. It's right next to Happy State Bank Expo. It's that park next door, and we're in the pavilion. The $25 ticket gets you into the event. We have a lot of local wineries and breweries that are donating adult beverages. We have water for the kids, and we're going to have food from both Jersey Mike's as well as Upa's sausages from Fredericksburg. So there'll be food, there'll be drinks. Oh, we got homemade beans and homemade potato salad in addition to that. So we've got a meal for you.
Any pies?
We're going to have a pie contest. We want encouraging people to bake a pie, come in, enter it in the contest. And then the way we're going to do that is we're going to sell tickets for a $5 donation. You get 3 tickets, which means you get to taste the pies. And then you get to vote on what the best pie is. That's the plan right there for the pies. We're going to have a cornhole. We've got at least 5 sets of cornhole boards so people can do that. We've got some table games, dominoes, Scrabble, just playing cards if people want to do that. And it's going to be family friendly. We're encouraging people to come out because it's the 26th of October. The kids can wear their Halloween costumes twice. They can test them out on the 26th and then wear them on the 31st.
Let's talk about polio for a moment.
Okay.
I'm of a generation that we took polio shots at school.
Yep.
I don't know personally anyone who had polio, but that's not my parents' experience. They both lived through polio scares and tragedies of both the 30s and 40s.
Yes.
And I think polio this day still impacts my mother's thinking because she was a teenager in the 40s. And why are we still talking about something that a vaccine was created for in the 50s? I assume you and I were both vaccinated.
We were.
And I would have thought that at least in the United States, we had come as close to possible as to eradicating this just horrific disease.
Well, we have eradicated it in the U.S. The cases that have been publicized recently are something called from what they call vaccine-derived polio. When you immunize on a large scale, and I'm talking about multi-millions of kids every year, there's going to be a very low percentage, less than 1%, but there is a percentage that sometimes that vaccination can cause what we're seeing. And we had someone come to the U.S. and all of a sudden everyone who had got polio, and the whole media, of course, talked about how polio's alive in the United States. It's not. It is a plane ride away because we have 2 countries, Afghanistan and Pakistan, that still have live wild polio virus cases. And until we get to 0 on those 2 countries for 3 years, because it takes 3 years of no documented cases, we're going to have to keep vaccinating because they are a plane ride away. They get on a plane with their parents, bring it here. I'm not pro or anti-vaccine. I am someone who gets vaccinated. But that's, I think, my worry is that someone's going to travel here who's got the active virus and come in contact with someone here who has not been vaccinated like you and I have. And they could technically still get polio.
Let me change the focus a little bit. Could you tell me about your journey through Rotary?
Yeah, I moved here to Kerrville in 2007 and took the job as director of the American Red Cross for the Texas Hill Country. And one of my board members said, you need to join Rotary. And I thought, I'd never even been asked to join Rotary, which is, I think, one of our problems. We don't ask people to join. And I joined, and it just fit me in terms of that inner person that wants to make a difference. I felt that way the whole time I worked for the Red Cross, for as many years as I worked for the Red Cross. And I liked it. So when I stopped being with the Red Cross, of course, I continued to be with Rotary. I was just representing a new organization, the ultimate gift of life. So I stayed a Rotarian, and eventually they asked me to be on the board, and then they asked me to be president. So I was president in 17, 18. And then someone called me and said, we think you'd make a good district governor. I thought, oh my goodness. It happened that when they asked me, we were 2 years out from the whole COVID thing. So by the time I was selected to be district governor in 21, 22. But by the time it came to, I was doing a lot of stuff via Zoom. I had to become at least semi-competent in being on the Zoom. And so a lot of my stuff, some of my training was done on Zoom. A lot of communication was done on Zoom. And it actually works really well if you're covering 54,000 square miles of Rotary clubs to be able to Zoom in for some meetings instead of having to try and get everyone to travel in for a meeting. So it works pretty well. So I stopped being district governor. I still do volunteer at the district level to help our area. I truly believe that Rotary, with its worldwide associations and all the clubs all over the world, 1.4 million Rotarians, that we make a difference. I find it very interesting with polio that initially a Rotarian went to the World Health Organization and said, we want to help with polio. And they basically said, what can you do? You're a volunteer organization with 1.2 million members. What can you do? He said, we're going to make it our emphasis. We're going to raise money for it. We're going to fight it. We're going to get it eradicated. And they said, we don't think you can do that. So that gentleman went to our international office and asked for money for a pilot program down in the Philippines to see what vaccinations could do. And their number of polio cases dropped by over 90% just in those 3 years. So then they went back to the World Health Organization and said, this is what we can do. And all of a sudden it was, come on board. You can make this happen. Our vaccinations are for more than polio. Our vaccinations help with a lot of different diseases in poorer countries where just fighting the measles or fighting any kind of thing is important. So that's why they call it Polio Plus, because we're doing that. Recently with the COVID vaccine, they used our system of delivery, using local people to get out and to try and vaccinate for COVID in a lot of these places too. But if you think about Pakistan and Afghanistan, there's a lot of remote areas where you could have someone who has polio come down into the city. And if the people there in the city aren't vaccinated, they're going to have more cases. This year so far, I think we've had 7 cases, but in both countries.
Let me go back to the time you were Kerrville president, Kerrville chapter president.
Mm-hmm.
Could you maybe give us a couple of highlights for you from your year as president?
Oh, Rotary has struggled for a while with membership. A lot of our social service organizations have done that. So I made membership a big deal, trying to keep the members we have and to recruit new members. But I also started a couple new projects. One of the things we started during my year was the Labor Day Walk of Fun. I thought that if we could have a walk Labor Day where people could learn something about what Rotary is doing. I walk up to people a lot and I say I'm with Rotary, and they say, "What does that mean?" Yeah. So why are you doing that? So I get into the whole thing about us being volunteer and what our focuses are, all of those kinds of things. We support a lot of local stuff and run a lot of local stuff to try and raise funds so we can touch people and help people in this community. So I just saw what Rotary was doing. And like I said, I did the Labor Day Walk of Fun. I helped with getting Rise Against Hunger going here, events that would show the community what we do.
And now let me ask that same question for your tenure as district governor.
Yeah.
What are couple of highlights from that time?
I think the best thing about being district governor was I had the opportunity to visit 54 clubs. Every club is different. Every club is in a different community. But what I saw was the clubs focused on their individual needs in that community. There were things that they were doing, just hearing about the service projects that a lot of those clubs were doing to try and make a difference in their community. And everyone had a different story. Some of them are hilarious. I can tell you that because I go, what does that mean? They have a thing down in Cuero they do something down there. And I'm like, is this your fundraiser? Really? We all hear about the cow patty fundraisers. This one had to do with chickens. That's all I can say. It had to do with chickens. But just hearing when they do that fundraising, what that does for their community in terms of what they support and how they can make a difference. And I thought, we need a Rotary Club everywhere. There are areas of the district where I thought, I need a Rotary Club in this city, in this town. There's enough people there to support it. We just need to get one going. And I think that's where I'm still doing things. We have a new club, and for anybody who's listening, if you're not a meeting person, if you don't like to go to meetings, we have a new club that's going to be called the Service Companion Club. It's called Impact. And the idea behind this is these people join, they become full-fledged Rotarians, but their focus is nothing but service. So when you have an event like the Blue Santa Drive we do here, when you have the Rise Against Hunger Drive or trash pickup or tree watering at Schreiner University, any of those kinds of things where we need volunteers, that's where their focus is going to be. Because if you're going to water a tree, you can do it at 5:00 or you can do it early in the morning. You get the tree watered. So having something that people can volunteer for all year round, and we track their service hours versus how many meetings they attended.
I found out before we started this podcast that you grew up in Holland, Michigan,
I did.
and you attended the University of Michigan, which of course I did. So could you tell us what got you to U of M and your professional career that got you to Kerrville?
Okay. First of all, I grew up in a household where my dad was a huge football fan. So there was no question what we were going to be doing Saturday afternoon. We were going to be watching Michigan football. And so I thought, I want to go to college. Where do I want to go to college? Dad said, you want to go to the University of Michigan? And I said, yeah, I really do. I think that would be fun, and be there in the stadium for the games. That'd be fun. They've got a good reputation as a school. So unlike what kids do nowadays, I put in an application for Michigan. I had no backup plan if I didn't get in. I had nothing. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I did get in. I went there to be an educator. That was my focus. I went to every Michigan game, except I did play for the field hockey team my senior year. So we had a game out of town on a home Michigan game, which is unheard of. You just shouldn't schedule those things. So I did miss the Michigan game in my thing. So Michigan has been my thing. When I graduated with my degree in education, I couldn't find a job. That was a time where we had a surplus of teachers, not like today, and not like where I think teachers are getting a bonus now for signing with a school district. But I worked part-time for 2 years through the school district, substitute teaching and working in aquatics. And the Red Cross had an opening in their health and safety, which is their CPR, their first aid, their lifeguarding, teaching swimming, all of that kind of stuff. So I went to work for the Red Cross in, God, what was that? 2075, 77, 2000. I went to work for them and I worked there for 4 years. And then I thought I could move around a little bit. So I went to Buffalo, New York for 4 years. They had an opening there. And then they had an opening in Houston, Texas. And when I went to Houston, I had a staff of 22, and we were doing all the training for all the areas of Houston in health and safety. And from there, I think I got sick of the big city. And so the opening came here in Kerrville for the Hill Country, which serves 8 counties, or did at that time serve 8 counties. So I got the job here.
When did you first move to Houston?
4 and 4 after 85, 94. Yeah, I guess so. I was at 4, and then came here, and I was there for 22 years.
The work of Rotary is an ongoing challenge and challenges for the organization. But in addition to service, it seems to me, I'm a new member, so it seems to me to be a lot about fellowship.
I think it's a lot. My friends, the Rotarians that I have lunch with on Wednesdays, they're all my friends. There are people I look forward to seeing at each meeting. There are people that I need a hug from at each meeting. I did warn them when I was president that I was a hugger. So I said, if anyone gets offended by that, you need to tell me so I know not to hug you, because I'm a hugger. I mean, I like that contact, that physical contact that we have. But I also am just so proud of our club and the things that we do accomplish. We have 22 service projects this year that are in our repertoire of what we're doing, from doing water safety and literacy in the elementary schools to the Rise Against Hunger program, to we have a golf tournament because we're honoring first responders, and we have a first responders lunch. We have a youth citizenship program that is for excellent 5th graders who don't necessarily have the highest grades, but they have the highest service in their 5th grade, and their teachers nominate them for that. Just a host of things. It seems like I just go from event to event, which is A-okay for me. I like being busy.
Kristy, unfortunately, we're near the end of our time for this episode. But before we leave, if our listeners wanted any more information on the Rotary Club of Kerrville or Pints, Pumpkins, and Pies, where could they go to find out?
They can go to our webpage, which is kerrvilleRotary.org. They can go up and look for things that we're doing. They can see who our speakers are. We have good speakers every week. But yeah, I invite everybody to come out October 26th from 5:30 to 7:30, get a meal, get some fellowship, get some drinks if you're a happy hour person, and just support this effort to eradicate polio once and for all.
Kristy, I wanted to thank you again for taking the time to visit with us, and I look forward to continuing this conversation.
Thank you, Tom.
This is Tom Fox again. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the award-winning Hill Country Podcast. If you've enjoyed this podcast, I hope you'll subscribe, rate, and review wherever great podcasts are listened to. The Hill Country Podcast is a proud member of the Texas Hill Country Podcast Network.